And we're live. Hey, Clayne, good to meet you again. I met you on the set of Lethal Weapon in Burbank a few years ago. And on the set, you were intense. You know, even when we interviewed you, you're pointing at us and telling us how it is. And in The Killing of Two Lovers, you're so intense throughout. You're so, where do you get it to like be so on the whole time?
My wife will tell you that I wake up there. But for this character specifically, the material was so good, man. You know, Robert is such a great writer. He creates these characters without overwriting them. And, you know, he and I both kind of come from the logic, or maybe it's a philosophy, I don't know, that, you know, not everyone always wears the white hat, and not always someone wear the black hat. You know, I think sometimes a lot of us are in the gray. We're all capable of beautiful, loving, wonderful things, and we're all capable of, you know, some pretty scary things, I think. And depending on the circumstances that surround us at that particular point in our lives, will kind of determine which direction we go.
Speaking of direction, what did Robert like tell you to do or be like? Did he have to direct you much?
You know, it's interesting. You know, Robert had directed a lot of his films with his partner for many years, Rodrigo, and Rod and him had made almost all the films that I had seen together. And then when we went to make this film, Rod took a break. So I kind of thought I was getting a package deal. But Robert and I, more than Rod and I didn't have the connection. Robert and I connected in 2009 at Sundance. And we always kind of stayed in touch and were trying to make movies together. And when we got on set, I realized, because this is Robert's first time directing solely a feature. He had directed The Miners the year before, which he won Best Director at Sundance in 2019. But this is like his first feature film. And what I realized was that Robert was for the majority of the time on those films, he was kind of in charge of the look and the feel of the film. And Rod worked with the actors. And Rod's philosophy had always been, because they worked with mostly non-actors, Robert's children and family for the most part, Rod always kind of approached it that you need to do multiple takes, meaning if you do it 20 times, eventually these people are going to be so exhausted that they're just saying the words and then allowing the behavior of the blocking to kind of inform the scene, which was a really interesting take. And that's certainly not kind of how actors work. So when we got together, you know, we'd shot some little things together here and there, proofs of concept, but we never shot a feature. But we weren't quite sure how one another was how we were going to kind of mesh as a unit. And what was interesting is that because I had so much faith in Robert as a filmmaker, and he had kind of described how each frame was going to be like a living photograph. Robert created a stage for all of us and gave us the scenario, which was the material and the words. And then Robert just kind of let it breathe, you know, and every now and then he would come in with a certain piece of direction that just kind of would certainly send the scene in a different trajectory, but it would be the slightest of thing. And as I trusted Robert trusted us as actors. You know, it was his first time working with professional actors. And I don't want to say that his children and his father and the people in his community that have worked with him are non-actors. They just haven't given up their whole lives to move to Hollywood, right? And I don't know if they have the passion as it relates to sacrifice. These guys are actors and they truly think of themselves as such. And I think of them as such. So what was interesting is Robert, with us kind of coming in with these non-actors, you know, as we'll call them, Robert just kind of let the worlds kind of come together, and he created an environment where we were all kind of isolated in this little town of Kanash. And it came out to where it was this beautiful kind of combination.
When you were shooting the driving scenes and you had your head down and a lot of driving, were you using process trailers or camera cars to get these scenes? What were you doing?
Fernando, my man, we had $32,000 in 12 days to make this movie.
Oh my God! Yeah, no process trailer.
homie, I had my poor boy Oscar, our DP, in the passenger seat. That last scene after everything that happens at the house, I'm driving into the field. That's my man in the passenger seat of this truck. And we had a line of freeway that we knew if I ran off the freeway, there was no big ditches. It almost kind of went flat. It was just hayfield. So the only thing that would have been in our way were these large round hay bales. Brother, I do the passing out thing, and it's me looking out my left eye, trying to drive with my left hand holding onto the steering wheel. It was guerrilla warfare at its finest making this movie, which is why I think it plays as well as it does, is because there's no bullshit.
You know what? You know what? I respect this film even more now that you told me that, because it looks like a way bigger budget film, way bigger.
I really appreciate you saying that.
I forgot you're an EP on it as well, right? You're an EP and.
Look, I financed the film just because we couldn't get everyone that we talked to about coming in and helping us. They had so many ideas for rewrites, and they wanted to lose the first scene. You got to get rid of that. There's no.
I love that. That hooks you at the beginning. It hooks you.
But my man, you can't do those kind of films unless you were doing it straight independent. Like, because these guys are coming from worried about the politics that's happening culturally, right? They're worried about everything that's happening in the world. And they're like, yo, you cannot point a weapon at a woman's face. And I said, I understand that, guys, but what we have to do is challenge the audience to have an opinion of this gentleman and then gain information, and how are they going to feel about him at the end of the film? That is what we're wanting to do. And it was just, no one could see that. And also the end of the film, they're like, what happened? They're just at the store? Like, what just the hell? This is, I'm like, guys, no one could get it. So I didn't have a choice. I had to write the check. You know what I mean? Because I felt so confident in what Robert was going to produce and what I could do with the character. But I was like, look, man, I'll do it. Then we don't have to answer to anyone. We can make it the way we want to make it. And if no one likes it, then, screw it. You and I need to figure out new professions. You know what I mean? Like, if we can't do this on our own, then I'm going to be a farmer every day, because Hollywood, this is just too challenging. I said, so let's just roll the dice. Let's go make a movie the way that we want to make it, and let's sink or swim.
Yeah, man, it's like listening to a song. It hooked me with the first few notes. When that very first scene, I don't want to give it away. I'm like, most indies start off slow with music and a sunset. I'm like, but yours started off like, let's go. It was already intense.
Buddy, I read that first draft because this started as a short, and then Robert rewrote it to turn into a feature. When I read that first page, I stood up in my home, because you don't do that. And what better way to hit people in the face? Now we've introduced the threat. We know what it is. For me, it was like seeing it was like the opening of Jaws. We now know what's out there. We don't need to see it until the end of the film, right? And Robert planted that seed in such a way. The enthusiasm I had was it was unbridled, man. It was amazing.
The film is absolutely perfect. I'm giving it the 9.9 out of 10. I love it. You're awesome. Everyone's great. Robert's a stud. And I'll talk to you soon, bro.
Yo, Fernando, have a great day, brother.
Take care, man. Thanks.